Welcome to Echoes Down the Road, a podcast presented by the band West of House. My name is Lance, and today we bring you episode 8, where we will be breaking down the song Turn of Phrase from our debut album Crescendo of Silence. So join me, Erick, and a special guest of the band, who is believed to be the possessor of the one ring that rules them all, and possibly lives behind an invisibility cloak. The three of us will be unpackaging this heartfelt song with all of its many layers.
Welcome back to Echoes Down the Road. This is episode 8, the Turn of Phrase episode. My name is Erick.
And my name is Lance.
And it's just the two of us joining you right now. Tommy, Kevin, and Dave were lost in a port somewhere in some storm. Hopefully they're huddled up together for warmth and avoiding hypothermia. But we do have a special guest with us, don't we, Lance?
We do. We're excited. I actually have never met him. I've only heard about him. I've once watched him in his witchcraft of dark, deep sorcery, doing a live YouTube while he mixed a song. So I'm excited to actually interact with this young man.
That sounds very voyeuristic. I'm thinking that may be a crime.
A crime of passion, maybe.
So you have heard us talk about him, I think, in every single episode. Welcome to Echoes Down the Road, Mr. Bobby Phillipps.
How's it going, guys?
Woo.
It is going well. We are so happy you could join us today.
I'm happy to be here, man. I've been listening to at least the first 2.5 episodes, and I've been like, I want to hang out with these guys. This sounds fun. So excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you, and now you can join the magic of a band that's never been in the same room, let alone having you that's never been in the same room with us. Right. For the folks out there, we've never met Bobby in person. We've talked countless times. I think I know him more intimately than my own children at this point with how much we interact when we're mixing songs.
We'll keep that a secret, Erick.
Yeah, we won't tell the kids. They're still happy after the Carry Your Dreams episode, so I don't want to crush them.
This won't be for them. This won't be for them.
Before we get started, I don't have the can here, but you have the can, don't you, Lance?
Okay, so maybe we should
take the honors.
Switch roles. So that means you have the honors.
So, Lance, what you drinking there?
Oh, it's a little cold this morning.
There was a slowness to that.
There was. My digits are cold because it's so chilly here in Southern California, even though I know that sounds kind of selfish to say. But to answer your question, because it's before noon, we are having fruit juice known as a sour that has a little kick. So I got a little Modern Times tropical Fruitland sour here. And Erick, you don't have a can. I can see that.
I don't. I have a bottle, and I don't know if this is... See, we got sounds there. We can't pay for
some jiggly wiggly. So. All right.
No, I think that worked. Let's do the pour. So,
and what you drinking there,
also,
Erick?
Well, besides my coffee, because again, it is 11. I felt incomplete with what you were drinking. So I am drinking a sour also. I'm going to butcher the name probably. I think it's called Ruze, Rueuze. It's made by the brewery in Placentia, just 6.3. And it's a sour blonde ale aged in oak barrels.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm pretty bougie this morning.
Yeah, and that's from brewery, is that right?
It's from the brewery, Breuery. They're pretty big here in SoCal. And
they are. I honestly...
They do amazing stuff. Their sours and the bourbon barreled stuff.
Anything. I honestly don't think I've ever had a beverage from them with any disappointment. They do everything well.
I would not argue. Mr. Phillips, are you drinking anything?
He does. I saw it earlier.
He's an hour ahead, so
I am
he
an hour
should
and
be
ahead,
drinking whiskey.
But I've also got a bunch of stuff I need to do today after today's episode. So it's noon where I'm at. And
it looks like used motor oil, by the way. So what is that?
I'm nursing a nitro cold brew from Starbucks. That's how.
Okay.
That's good stuff.
It is good stuff. For the listeners, we had planned on doing this episode a couple times before and some stuff got in the way. You told me we were doing what you drinking there, and I had actually bought a 6-pack of some Blacktooth stuff, some homegrown stuff. That's a Wyoming brewery. And we just got one. It was originally elsewhere in the state. I forget where. but we just got another tap house here in Cheyenne where I live for Blacktooth, and I picked up some of their coffee stout. That's all gone. I drank it. So today we just get the coffee portion of it.
Well, yeah, beer shouldn't be expected to sit around.
No.
I've had a few waiting for episodes, and you know what? If we skip a date, the beer's gone.
Yeah,
absolutely. It doesn't stand a chance.
Well, that's good. We need to get out to Wyoming there, Lance, and partake in some of the libations
we've got
from our middle American friends.
It's a beautiful state. Like we were talking earlier before we started recording, I've only been there in the winter, and it was stunning how beautiful it was. I can only imagine in the spring what it would look like.
Extra snowy in my experience. So right now it's 26 degrees out, I think. So I don't know what your definition of chilly is in SoCal, but
we have a very different definition.
I have a nipply wind.
I think the low 60s means the shorts stay on, but the sweatshirt comes on too.
Yeah, so it's 23 degrees Fahrenheit, and there's about a half an inch of snow on the ground, and that's sweatshirt weather here.
Yes. Wow.
I wouldn't mind it.
What elevation are you in Cheyenne?
Just over 6,000, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
We're higher than Denver, I know that, which is, of course, the mile-high city.
No, I can relate. I went to school in Flagstaff, Arizona, which is 7,000 feet. And if it's 40 degrees and sunny, it's T-shirt and shorts.
Yep.
Just because of that altitude. Now, you go in the shade, totally different situation.
And we get ridiculous winds here, too. It's actually a calm day today, but we had like gusts in the 50s and 60s miles an hour just a couple days ago.
Game over. Game over. Wind is not good.
No, I'm not a scientist, but at that elevation, would Tommy's head get bigger?
It would swell because there's less air pressure to hold it down. So it would definitely enlarge at that elevation.
Okay.
The pressure differential.
That's what I figured.
I'm sad he's not here. I was hoping I could fire him like honorably. Like, can I fire him?
There's that, and then there's the token line of somebody has to say, "Shut up, Tommy." So we'll fold that in there somewhere.
So wherever you are, Tommy,
shut up.
Shut up, Tommy.
We love you, Tommy.
I think it's almost in every episode. I think I may have missed one somewhere.
I think you're right. There was one episode.
But you don't want to overuse it. I mean, then it becomes the catchphrase you have to say in every episode. I like that it comes out organically in almost every episode.
That's what's sad, though, is we don't overuse it, and we yet still have to use it every episode. So,
well, it has to be done. He understands.
Yeah, he just walks into it.
As long as he knows his place, right? But
there's a 50% chance we're actually going to see him on the Skype sneaking up behind Bobby.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, he could be hiding back there.
That is
somewhere amidst the drums.
Terrifying.
Drum demon.
All right, so let's jump into our interview, our second guest interview for this podcast. We had Paul Stamات, director of the Yesterdays and Moving Shadows video, back in the Moving Shadows episode, and well, hopefully this goes well. So we have not given Bobby these questions ahead of time, just so they can be off the cuff. They're written on our sheet, of course.
Of course.
We wrote them down, but I erased them from Bobby's version because it's a little more sadistic.
We'll grade him later.
Yes. It'll come out of his mixing.
Tee me up.
All right. So, Bobby, why don't you start us off and give us a little rundown of your musical history and how you kind of went from Wyoming rock god to international mix ninja.
That is your official name.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I've been called hashtag Cheyenne famous by some people around town. So, so I grew up around music. For a time context, I'm 32 years old, and growing up, Dad was a big blues rock fan. So we had like Stevie Ray Vaughan was always playing around the house,
nice.
Buddy Guy, B.B. King. And then also into like Eric Clapton and Mark Knopfler. And then my mom was more into the classic, what's now considered classic rock sort of stuff. So we always had Led Zeppelin around the house, AC/DC, Aerosmith, stuff like that. So
okay, I got to time out real quick.
Yeah.
I love your parents. You just described everything musically that I love and still to this day worship just a little. Yeah.
Same, absolutely.
But Lance, you did leave out the Air Supply.
No, come on,
I know
man.
you were raised on a steady diet of Air Supply by your older brother.
That never happened. But yeah, so go on, Bob. I just had to say, I'm amazed by your parents already.
Yeah, no, it was a great upbringing, and I still thank them for the music that they raised me on. So, but we didn't have any musical instruments in the house when I was growing up, other than I had a toy piano, which I actually still have back in my storeroom. Little Casio thing for kids. About the time I was 12, I was in junior high school, and my grades were slacking, and so my parents grounded me from everything else. Couldn't play video games, couldn't play computer games, couldn't hang out with my friends, couldn't watch TV. But there was this little half-size acoustic guitar sitting in the corner of my room that I'd never touched since I was like 5 years old. And I had to do a book report on Stevie Ray Vaughan's biography, one of them anyway. And so I'm reading it. I'm getting back into his music because I hadn't listened to it in a while. And I'm picking up the guitar just to play along with the songs. And that just kind of like steamrolled from there. So I got my first electric guitar when I was 13 and started getting into playing Stevie Ray Vaughan, and then I got into like Deep Purple and playing Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath.
Highway Star.
I was a shoot, I can't remember the name of the song now.
It wasn't by Supertramp. I'm gonna be pretty sure about that. Eric loves Supertramp.
There's nothing wrong with Supertramp. No, there's nothing wrong with Supertramp. Yeah, space trucking, and of course, I had to learn Smoke on the Water. It's it's a rite of passage.
Highway Star? No,
it was. What was the other one? It was also on Made in Japan. That was the one I was listening to. Shoot, I'm gonna have to look that up. You can edit this out. Made in Japan. Deep Purple.
I just think Iron Maiden, made in Japan.
I never got into Maiden that much.
What?
I already love Bobby. You're my spirit animal. I'm the same way.
I was a Metallica guy. I was a
Shut
Metallica
up, Lance.
My friends were like, "Yeah, go Skid Row," and I'm like, "Sweet, White Room by Cream."
Yeah,
you're allowed to like them both.
This is true.
I mean, I appreciate them now. I never liked
Slave to the Grind is an absolutely kick-ass album.
No, you're right. It was Space Truckin'. I'm getting my guitar riffs mixed up. It was Space Truckin'. Yeah. So anyway, grew up learning that sort of stuff, and this was in the early 2000s. So the new metal thing was happening. Linkin Park and Evanescence, Korn. All that sort of early 2000s metal was going on, and I got into a little bit of it, but I was the weird kid in my high school who knew how to play guitar solos when everyone else was just playing power chords. So I was in maybe 2 or 3 bands throughout high school, and then out of college, I joined a hard rock trio, and we did a lot of, it was a bar gigging band. We did a lot of Van Halen and Pantera and Metallica, and to my chagrin, we did some Motley Crue and some Iron Maiden. I'm gonna catch some heat for that, but
not from Eric.
Not from. Well, I mean, the Iron Maiden thing was I don't know, something about the vocals just never hooked me. I was a big Master of Puppets Metallica guy, like that.
Well, Dickinson's a great singer, but
excellent singer.
He spends a lot of time in the stratosphere.
Yeah, no, he's way up there.
And for us normal mortals, and I'm the same way. I want something that I can sing along with to the whole album. And after an album of sing along with Maiden, I need a nap.
And then on top of that, I got hired for an acoustic gig, sight unseen. The bar I'd been playing with my band, they asked hey, we want to do some happy hour entertainment on Fridays. Could you do something? And I'd never sung lead before. I'd sing backup every now and then. But I just jumped into it and said, yeah, give me 2 months to work up a set list. And so that's been my standing gig for the last 9 years now, is just playing acoustic. Yeah. So just a solo acoustic show for about, depending on the night, I've done 7-hour shows, just singing my head off. So, and that's my main gig right now. I'm not the band broke up about 7 years ago. And so that's been my primary performing focus. And then on top of that, I'd recorded a couple solo albums of kind of Satriani-esque stuff, very just straight up rock instrumental. And some local musicians got wind of it, and I started recording and mixing some of their projects for solo EPs. I got a couple guys I work with now who we record a song for them to pitch to publishers in Nashville. So far, nothing's been picked up that I'm aware of, but I still get paid for the work. So that's how I got into production. And as far as the sort of remote mixing thing, Tommy and I don't know if he's still in it, but Tommy and I were in a Facebook group called Theme Music, just sort of a creative prompt thing. You get a prompt every 2 weeks and either write or cover songs based on the prompt. So songs about heartbreak, songs about drinking, songs that are one word that start with an S, sort of arbitrary sort of stuff to kind of get you creating music. And he was on a project to cover a Styx song, and I can't remember which Styx song it was, but I got pulled in to mix it because there was like 8 musicians on it, and it was just kind of cacophony. So I got pulled in to mix it, and Tommy loved the sound of his drums on that. And, I think 2 or 3 years later, he hit me up to see if I'd be interested in trying to get you guys to hire me to mix Fallen was the first song. And that's kind of where it started.
Wow. So that means you were introduced to the band through Tommy.
Through Tommy.
And so what were your initial thoughts of Fallen and that process, especially when you had to meet the one and only Erick Bieger?
I don't think
he's a lot to take, but he's a wonderful man at heart.
You're only saying that because he's in the room right now.
Well, he's 2 blocks away, so I have a safe lead ahead.
Oh, is he really?
I know where you live.
I'm faster than you, though. I can run quick.
No argument there.
So I don't know that I actually started interacting with Erick until we were about halfway through Yesterday's, if my memory's correct.
I don't think we talked on Fallen. I sent everything through Tommy.
Yeah.
Okay. And Yesterday's being our second song, I think we did.
Yep, chronologically, Yesterday's, I think, was the next one. So I did everything through Tommy on Fallen, and I would send him the mix. Well, back up. So I got the rough mix to listen to ask if I would be interested in trying a mix on it. And I heard it, and I dug it, As you guys mentioned in, I think, the second episode you were talking about Yesterday's, that was where you really kind of found your sound. So when I heard Yesterday's, it just sounded like kind of a straight ahead, I don't want to say soft rock, but definitely just a mellow kind of rock song. And I dug it. I dug the vocals on it. I kind of liked that clean tenor sort of sound. It was kind of vibey. So I took it in and mixed it and passed the first mix off to Tommy, and he passed it off to Erick. Erick sent some notes back, and we kind of finessed it. And that was kind of how it started. And picked me up for the rest of the album. So
Erick, that brings kind of me back to the beginning now. That I didn't even think about this before, but when we did Fallen, and then you wanted to mix it and get it mastered, and because you could only do so much since we only have so much talent within each of us, we knew we needed help. But didn't we go to a few other people well prior to even Tommy bringing Bobby's name up? I think we had a person in Brazil, England, maybe Italy.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that. So before we knew anything about Bobby, and we'll probably talk about it in the Fallen episode too, I imagine. But we were on. I did some work on a site called Fiverr, which is like independent guys that you can pay, and it's not too much. And so we sent it off to 3 different guys: Brazil, Italy, and the UK.
Yeah. Okay.
And they gave back free samples of all their stuff, and one was pretty decent.
Brazil.
Was it Brazil?
Yeah, I think Brazil was who we liked.
Brazil was good, and UK was okay. Italy was not good.
Yeah.
At all.
There's a lot of
sorry,
problems
Italy.
in that country.
It's not your fault. But then Tommy said, hey, I know this other guy too. Let's give him a shot, and we decided to buy American there because when Bobby's came back, there was what sold it for me, Bobby, was your work on the vocals.
Oh,
because obviously as a singer, that's really important. And all the other guys, they got the instrumentation right. Mm-hmm. There were some level things that could change, but you had a talent with the vocals there that immediately stood out. And so that won you the gig.
It did. Actually, I think we as a band, we agreed, hey, let's pay Brazil. Let's pay Bobby.
We did pay Brazil, that's right. Because he did a good job.
He did. And so let's finish both of them. And then we knew at that point we kind of had that inkling we're going to do some more, maybe a band, like a full album kind of a thing we were kind of flirting with. And then by the time it was done, it wasn't even a discussion. It was like Bobby Bobby has a different level. Like there's this whole other gear. Brazil was great. Bobby had this other level and gear that we knew, oh my God, moving forward, this is our man for sure.
Yeah, and the existing relationship with Tommy was important because where with Brazil it was purely business relationship and transactional. Bobby became this actual real guy that we could talk to and we could bounce stuff off. And by this time it's now January 2021 and recording this. Bobby and I have gone back and forth on all the songs at Crescendo, a few extra things at Heaven and Hell, which is released now, the cover song we did by Churches. He's done my solo album. So we've built this relationship of, he gives it to me, I give it back, we do notes, we talk, and there's a very good working relationship there. And we're both kind of perfectionists in the ways that we don't want to stop on something until it's done. And the problem we would have had with anyone we didn't know, it's like, okay, I've fixed this 2 more times for you. That's enough. I need to get on to more projects, kick rocks. So right. Apologies in advance, Bobby. Not in advance, I guess after the fact. But no, I mean, we do a lot of chatting back and forth.
We do. And it's a good relationship because I think, especially for me, I think about the time that I really felt like, okay, now I'm hooked into the sound. You guys said yesterday, for me, oddly enough, it was actually, hang on, I have the track list here. I have the CD here.
Nice.
Plug.
Where was it? Holy Ghosted was actually the most esoteric, probably not the right word for it, but the most different song on that album. For whatever reason, that was the one that I finally felt like I had a handle on the sound. And that really helped actually when we went back to the rest of the songs to kind of finesse them, especially Fallen. We did Fallen, in February of last year, I think, of 2020?
Yeah.
February or late, even early March. It was before lockdown.
It was the first and a little teaser, the last song we worked on for Crescendo of Silence.
Yep.
That's true.
So I don't want to talk about Fallen too much just because it's going to get its own episode. But being able to go back once I felt like I had a handle on the sound, that I felt like that made Fallen and the rest of the songs that came immediately thereafter, Yesterdays and whatnot, that much stronger just because I finally felt like I had a handle on our working relationship, on the sound you guys were going for. And as the songs were starting to pile up, the overall vibe and feel of an entire album versus one isolated song or 3 isolated songs.
Bobby, I don't know how much Erick paid you to say that Holy Ghosted was the one song that got it for you, but that definitely made Erick's loins tingle. There's no doubt about it.
It was, well, that's when you were, I think you were experimenting with the vocals. And was that when you started using that Portal plugin?
It was either that or whatever one came immediately after, and I can't remember the chronological order of the songs as far as what we sent them. Because
what was it? I don't know. It was after Ghost.
Yeah,
maybe Echoes.
It might have been Echoes. It wasn't Denmark. I'm looking at the list here. Was it Moving Shadows?
Could have been.
Could have been. It was one of those for sure. But yeah, I think it was there. And the song we're going to be talking about today, especially, was really where I found that Portal sound. For those listening and not audio engineers, Portal is a plugin by Output, the company, that does this crazy, gooey, pitch-affected, stuttery. It can do all these crazy ambient sounds. Goo. Yeah. And I created a preset with Portal and Soundtoys Echo Boy that made this 30-second long echo that just permeates the entire album, basically. So we went back and
Lance,
put that in everything.
Lance, I don't know if you know this, but I mean, so Bobby and I, it's kind of a running joke on every song. I'll just be like, it needs more goo. on the vocals and more moistness. And I'll just come up with different, synonyms for this. And then he created through Portal the goo patch.
It doesn't surprise me. You do love goo. I know that about you.
Gooey vocals it's the best.
For the sake of it, so other people can hear it, I'll see if I can send you just a clip of some goo from this song, which I keep forgetting the actual name of it because you changed the name. Turn of Phrase.
Oh, it's Turn of Phrase now. We'll kind of talk about the demo. Let's when we get to Turn of Phrase, bring it up again.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure we play it because we do lots of musical overlays in this podcast, which hopefully the folks enjoy.
So I'll send you some isolated tracks.
Yeah, way to bring that around, because that is the episode we're on.
Kind of springboarding off that, Bobby. Why don't you talk about a typical mixing session with the band?
Yeah. So typical would be probably 7 out of the 10 songs, where you have the whole band cranking, Dave or no Dave, because I know he was added kind of halfway through. But my understanding is you guys kind of hash out the parts, and everybody records their stuff, sends it to Erick, who kind of would, and you can jump in on this, Erick, too, where you'll say, this is good, or I need more of this, less of that. Can you play this differently? Pretty spot on.
You're right on track.
Okay. And then I end up getting the majority of the tracks from Erick. This is going to be Erick's vocals, any backing vocals from Dave, Kevin's parts, Lance's parts, and then Tommy sends me his parts separately. I'm assuming he just sends you a 2-track to start.
Just a 1. I tell him to mix everything down to 1 MP3, and then I kind of that's how I make the reference MP3 for you.
Sure. So I get the individual drum tracks from Tommy, and he's usually got, I've got notes from Erick as far as things he's really looking for. Usually this will be things like, Kevin's guitar part here is really what needs to shine, or can we make the vocal in this bridge really kind of jump out and be ethereal, sort of creative things like that. And from Tommy, I'll also have notes as far as he's always experimenting with different drum parts, different drum pieces. He's what is he up to? Like 28 microphones now. It's
like
ridiculous. But I get the big thing I get from him is the panning of the different pieces of his kits left to right, which helps me get a picture of the whole drum kit and make it sit where it needs to sit in the room, as it were. So I get all the different pieces. I'll also get a reference track from Erick, just an MP3 of where he last left the song. And I'll usually give the MP3 a listen maybe 2 or 3 times through to get a vibe of the song. And it's also sort of my way of listening for what they were going for, what Erick was going for, as far as like, is it really gooey and ambient? Is it more of a straight up rock and roll song? And that kind of guides where I'm going to take the mix from there. If you hear meowing, that is my cat going nuts. So apologies to the listeners.
It's okay. We had parrots on the yesterday's episode that I couldn't get out of my front yard. So
nice. So I'll pull the tracks in, and I've got a template set up that just more than anything helps me with organization and routing. So all the drums get funneled down to one bus fader. The bass track has its own bus fader, which sometimes I'll duplicate and add like a distorted bass track on top of it. Guitars get their own faders, keys and sound effects, and then vocals and backing vocals, those each get their own fader. And I really just start kind of sculpting it, and I try to take sort of an 80-20 Pareto principle approach, where 20% of the moves get you 80% of the result is kind of the idea there. So it's really broad strokes to start to kind of get everything in the ballpark, and then from there it's really nitty-gritty. The template I have also includes now the goo, and it's got some other kind of general purpose effects. There's like a quarter note echo that syncs up with the tempo of the song, and an eighth note one, a dotted. There's like 3 different ones I tend to use, a couple reverbs and distortions, and that just kind of lets me quickly move through and kind of keep creative without having to think too much about the technical engineering side of it. Once I've got everything balanced, depending on the complexity of the song, I might let it sit for a little bit, come back to it with fresh ears, make a few more tweaks before I send the first mix off. There's been a couple times where I've pulled it together, sent it off, and all we've had is minor tweaks, bring this vocal up, turn this guitar down, and we're done. Other times we'll go through a series of 5 or 6 revisions, and most of the time when I get the notes back from Erick is usually who I get them from. I agree with the notes. I'll listen to it, and Erick will say, no, this is too loud. You're right. It is too loud. So it's a collaborative effort for sure.
Yay, I'm not crazy.
Or we're both crazy, one of the two.
Oh, yeah, definitely that one.
Hey, so Bobby, have there
Yes.
been any songs on this project that have presented unique challenges, or maybe the other side, something you're extremely proud of?
I mean, I'm extremely proud of the whole thing. I'm looking at the back of the CD now. I've been separated from the work for a while. I haven't actually listened to the whole CD in a while, but I did listen to Turn of Phrase and pull up the session today. Turn of Phrase was its own set of challenges, which we can talk to as we dive into that. They each really had their own unique sort of pressing thing. Like, Fallen was probably the most difficult one just because it was a fresh band, it was new, and I was kind of getting my feet under me as far as the sound.
It's interesting you say that, though, because for all of you Westies out there, Turn of Phrase has the least amount of parts. I'm not in it as the bass player, the drummer's not in it, but it is a delicate song. So I would love for you to kind of expand on, like, why would a song with fewer tracks, you've just eliminated 38 tracks from Tommy, why would this be a big challenge for you?
Right. So the more, I'm trying to think of how to word this. So it's kind of a static arrangement before I do anything to it. It's piano, it's a guitar part, and it's two sets of vocals, a sung part and a spoken part. There's not a lot of dynamics built into the song as it is when you just put the tracks up where they're at. It's really just vibey, and I wanted to build in some ebb and flow and some drama to it. And when you don't have drums building up and dropping down in intensity, and you don't have a bass line, that was really its own challenge too. You really kind of have to start building some dynamic things in there to make the song have more of an interesting flow from start to finish, because otherwise it's going to be static and it could be boring. So I did some things in the engineering side to try to make some parts poke out a little bit more, make things a little bit more dramatic and interesting as the song flows across.
Nice.
And I can talk about some of the technical of that too. I just pulled up the session to remind myself what some of the moves I did were, if you're interested.
Well, I want to dive into that. We do have a question that came in over email for you before we jump into Turn of Phrase, and it's from Tommy. Many have attributed your powers to wizardry and/or black magic. Are you currently aligned with dark forces, and if so, are any of them single?
Shut up, Tommy. No, sorry, I had to get that in there. So
that is the perfect way to conclude our interview with Bobby Phillipps.
Bobby's part of the family.
Wow, not even scripted. You knocked that one out of the park.
No dark forces to speak of. My lawyer's advising me I should probably shut my mouth on that. So,
that was great. Thanks, Bobby, for just all of that. Just kind of, it's fun just for us to have kind of this audio history diary of all the stuff that went in. That was kind of our initial thought in making a podcast, because you don't remember all the things that happened. But now we get to put it out there, and it's just an extra benefit that people are actually listening to this, which still blows my mind. But I found, even stepping away from the band, I find what you say about the whole process very interesting.
And it's interesting for me too, because when I'm in the middle of a mix, and whether I'm like in the middle of it and I haven't even sent you guys a first pass, or we're on the tail end of revisions, like all of that as it goes by is kind of a blur. Like I hit sort of a flow state, and it's just kind of automatic. It's interesting taking sort of a retrospective look at these and listening to the previous episodes you guys have done. There's been a lot of like, oh yeah, I remember that moment. It's super fascinating, both as a fan and as the engineer.
It's good stuff. Hey, how about we dive into Turn of Phrase?
Let's do that.
So let's move on to the next part of the episode. At this time, we usually give you guys a chance just kind of to pause and listen to the song. If you haven't already, you can pull it up on Spotify or Apple Music, or if you have the CD like Bobby does, you can crank it up there. But if you got it, this is a good time. Listen to the song and come back. So there's your chance. It passed in a blink for me, but hopefully for you, it took about 3 minutes and 45 seconds. I don't know how long that song is. Maybe
what
4.
year is it? I've lost track of time.
I've grown my beard. Lance brought up a good point. This song has the least amount of West of House members on it, just me and Kevin. Lance isn't on it. Tommy isn't on that. It's not because we ran out of time or anything. It's definitely by design, but I mean, you've heard Bobby talk about it too. And, Bobby's even on the song, which we'll get to in a bit, and has a writing credit for it just because of his input to this song was so integral that it wouldn't have been complete without what Bobby put in. So, for the 2-cent check that you'll get in about 3 years,
I'll retire.
You earned that, my friend. It was initially called Not Too Late. We have different names for everything. And there's no demo version of the song, which is another interesting factoid about it, because the demo version is just the piano track, because initially that's all I had. I think I wrote it in April, and it was just 2 piano parts. And it kind of had this feel that at the time I didn't really know where to go with it, but I really liked that feel of piano. I knew there was potential there. There was a melody that I wanted to throw in. And that's my only instrumental contribution to the song is that piano part, which you're listening to right now. It's just very simple stuff. My piano skills are very basic, but they worked for this song. And the fact that it became a very minimalistic song, rather than some of our tracks, which song has the most tracks? Is that Voyeuristic?
I think that's Voyeuristic Symphony. I think you were on the order of 70 some odd tracks.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot. I don't think we overproduce songs, but we definitely don't skimp when it comes to tracks, especially.
You'll have to call me back for Voyeuristic Symphony, because I would love to talk about that one too.
You have already made yourself welcome with any episode, just your insights. I'm thinking of just bringing you back for season 2, just to kind of join us when we talk about God knows what.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Doing a hell of a job, Bobby. I'm having a lot of fun.
Definitely. Hey, were half of those 72 Bobbies? Did he have 30?
You mean Tommy's?
Oh, sorry, Tommy. Did he have 36 tracks there?
Oh man, I'd have to pull up the session. 20 some odd drum tracks. There was like maybe 12 string tracks, a good handful of vocals and keys. And yeah, it was just a smattering of tracks.
I apologize.
How many bass tracks were there, Lance?
Uno.
It's just one. That's all Lance is good.
One and done.
Minimum effective dose, man.
That's me, my friend.
And sorry we didn't bring in turn of phrase, Lance. I didn't hear it.
That's
but
okay.
you do. I mean, you did well. I mean, it's not like you didn't cry or anything.
No, less is more. I know we don't always love that phrase because less is generally less, as we said in our last episode, but sometimes you pull things away and you can accentuate other things.
You know
what I think we did.
What's kind of funny too is that I ended up on the engineering side making a bass track out of one of the piano tracks. I just pulled it up today and I forgot I had done that. But because there was no bass track, I didn't want it to feel like the ass of the song had dropped out. Especially when you go from one song to another, and we didn't have the track sequencing yet at the time, as far as what order they were going to be on the album. But I ended up duplicating one of the pianos. I'm pretty sure it was Erick's track, and I took out all of the high end and mid end, so it's all just low end. Smashed the heck out of it, and that kind of made a fake bass track, and that picks up right after the singing stops and the spoken word comes in, so it kind of, the song gets a little bit bigger right there. So even though there was no bass, there was a bass.
I love when I learn something new about our own songs. So that's really cool. I mean, having that bass there, and it also kind of plays to Kevin's piano tracks too, which kind of go with that minimalistic feel. And what you're hearing right now is one of the tracks that he played. And it's just those single quarter notes and that go along with what I'm playing on piano. So it's kind of like, we reference Iron Maiden where they had the 2 dual guitar attacks. This is Kevin and I's dual piano attacks. So that's his solo. But now when I play them together and you hear both those piano tracks, and it's all very simple stuff, but things don't need to be complicated to be good. I think, and all musicians struggle with that. I know I do. I'm sure Bobby and Lance do too. You may be able to do more. You may be able to ingve, but just because you can doesn't mean you should.
So bring that piano track back up. And I want to bring in one more thing that I put in towards the end of the song. On Kevin's piano, you can hear his notes. And then with Portal again, that crazy trippy echo thing, I added an octave up echo on there where it lifts up the whole track and you just get this air. And
oh, that sounds very cool. It's funny because, I often forget that what I give you is not always what comes back. There's more added. And it's just that extra, that's why we refer to Bobby as the sixth member of the band. That's what he brings in also. These songs, that they're his too. So he's stuck with us for, forever. And if we have to put him in Tommy's dungeon, then so be it.
Yeah, I don't know who's trapped with who in that situation.
It's a good point.
Well, we'd probably get a few more albums done.
That's a good point.
So, and then we have Kevin's guitars. And if you haven't noticed it or you're not familiar with the band, there is a huge Explosions in the Sky influence on this song. If you're not familiar with them, go check them out. The stuff they do, it's amazing. It's these instrumentals that build with massive guitar tracks, and they're just beautiful. They did the theme for Friday Night Lights, and they're wonderful. And Kevin pulled that out of his back pocket. It's a blatant influence, and it's perfect for this song. His playing's very minimalistic. We've got just two of them, but what they add, you put those on top of the pianos, and what we send to Bobby, just those 4 tracks from us, that becomes kind of this beautiful foundation of turn of phrase. Showing once again that not every song needs 70 tracks. Sometimes 70 tracks is cool. And Voyeuristic Symphony needed 70 tracks. But sometimes you don't need it. And then you have something intimate like turn of phrase. So where even the instruments they're holding up the lyrics too, depending on what you're trying to say and that feel you're going for.
And mad props to Kevin too. I'm kind of bummed out I didn't get to talk with him today, but mad props to him. That dude knows exactly what to play, when to play.
So true.
It comes up in almost every episode. He does so much with 1, 2, 4 notes than people do with a lifetime of 64ths. I don't understand it. He's got a beautiful ear for melody, and I try not to get. We have the tendency to get a little self-serving with each other, and I don't want all the podcasts to be like Lance is the best and Tommy is the best. We know Bobby's the best, but when we talk about these things, we're not just tooting our own horns. It's that we love these songs so much, and we have such respect for each other that I know musically I'm the weak link in the band, but I'm constantly amazed.
That's a lie. That's a lie.
Shut up. By what Lance brings and what Tommy brings and Kevin and Dave, and just surrounding yourself with these guys who are so talented, and what Bobby brings. Bobby does things that I can't comprehend. I'll text him over Messenger and be like, can I do this to a song with this thing that was invented in 1957? Because I don't know what's going on. And he's always very patient with me. He taught me just the basics of sound and stuff, and it just blows my mind. So again, I'm not trying to be self-serving or lift ourselves up, but just I'm so blessed to be in the company of guys who are so talented and use it very humbly to create something that we all enjoy.
Appreciate that, man.
I did want to ask Bobby.
Yes.
Was that a Coors Banquet, or are you drinking LaCroix?
I'm drinking the LaCroix.
Okay.
It's
is it LaCroix or LaCroix?
But
I never pronounce anything.
Because usually
correctly.
when Lance says it, we've got several episodes of Lance just saying stuff.
Well, I
wrong.
mean, my wife and I call it LaCroix just because it's extra bougie.
Yes, it is.
But it's sparkling water that looked at a picture of a lemon.
Well played.
Yeah, mine's my go-to is the pamplemousse. I got to be honest. Pamplemousse and a whole lot of gin.
Oh, gin is so good.
Yeah, I'm not a gin guy. Tastes like a pine
tree. Oh, you should.
Oh, I love
it's
pine
wonderful.
Tree. I like to chew pine bark, just suck on it.
That's why do I have a feeling this is the Easter egg for this?
Beautiful.
Done.
Chewing
Beautiful.
on pine trees. Okay. The other thing is the work that Kevin and I were able to do on this song. It was very reminiscent of our working style with Kings in the Back Row, which we talked about in the very first episode. That's the kind of electronica post-rock group that Kevin and I do on the side. And Bobby is a part of now too. You just mixed and mastered our last single.
That is a fact, yeah.
That was Echo Chamber, and because the podcast is ours and Bobby did such great work, let's play a little clip of that now.
So, turn of phrase, the song really revolves around the lyrics. So let's talk a little bit about the vocals and Erick, the lyrics that you put together on this one, which from my perspective are pretty heavy. They're emotional. They could be a love story. They could be religious. There's a lot of layers to this song, and just listening to it, I think that's why there are so few tracks on it, because the lyrics and the vocals really are center stage.
Well, yeah, if you've listened to past episodes, we definitely have a thing with layers in our songwriting. And the vocal part on this was relatively simple, but the writing for it was very unconventional. So I started out with the verse that, just speak your mind, we're running out of time to try to find a way to say goodbye. I started with that and just found this melody, which really worked. And it's a really pretty melody, and it's lilting and it's flowing. And I get to the next verse, and we got that out of the way. So now in my mind, I've got a new piano part. So I'm thinking chorus. And I come up with the first line of the chorus. Well, what I thought was the chorus, which was to say everything I need to say. And then I went into stream of consciousness, and all this stuff just started pouring out. The rest of this song, that whole spoken word part, was written in 15 minutes. And it's flowing out, and I'm like, I can't sing this. I mean, there's no external or internal rhymes, which doesn't matter anyways if I want to get, a little advanced with the scheme. But there's too many words, and it can't be sung. And to sing all the words that I came up with, you're looking at a song that's like 17 minutes long, with no discernible chorus, and no one's going to listen to that. And I thought initially, I've got like spoken word poetry here, and this is the track that everyone's going to skip, because who the hell wants to listen to spoken word poetry? But what came out was so different than anything I've done before. We just decided to go with it, because on Crescendo of Silence, we did a lot of things that you wouldn't normally do. I mean, our genre hopping alone, you're playing like Moving Shadows or Chasing After Memories, and then you hit Holy Ghosted, and you're like, I have no idea what's going on, and I'm having seizures. But, they're the fun kind of seizure that makes you, feel like you're wrapped up in a nice bowl of ratatouille. But
Nice.
and Turn of Phrase was like that. And I think I wrote it not too long after some of the finishing touches on Holy Ghosted. So we'd already kind of opened that door to something different. So it was, recording wise, the vocals were easy, and we'll kind of jump into lyrics. But even Bobby is also on that song. Are you not, Bobby? You have a little vocal.
Do I?
Escapade?
No, I thought that was
I
on. Oh man, which one was that? Was that?
You did kick your ass on
Yeah,
Denmark.
I did kick your ass on Denmark. I don't have.
Is it? Didn't you do? I think you did, because maybe I was drunk, which there's a good possibility.
Are you talking about
that never happens.
I seem to remember you doing the whispered "say goodbye" under my "say
Did
goodbye."
I do that? I have to pull up the. I thought you whispered.
You told me you did it.
Well, maybe I did.
No, I didn't whisper it.
Well, maybe I did.
I think that's
That
you,
might have
dude.
been.
Erick doesn't whisper; he only yells.
I might have been.
Oh no, I have whisper tracks that I've
He
given
does.
Bobby. There's
I might
plenty
have
of
been
them.
drunk for that one. This was during lockdown, and there was a lot of beer to be had. So
There was a lot going on. I know you added some waves to it, which sounded really good.
Oh, I do remember the waves. Yeah. It's
You
all
added the
coming
waves,
back to
and
me.
I didn't. I heard the song. I'm like, what is that? It sounds like waves, and it came like after. I think it was after the Port in the Storm.
Yeah. Okay.
Which was great.
I do remember that.
There's no judgment in COVID times, Bobby. So
Hey, I
No, sometimes I forget we have an album, and I'm like, oh, we did this
during lockdown.
There's a lot going
Well,
on.
and that's funny because outside of doing the Westahouse mixes, like you guys kept me busy during lockdown. Our lockdown here in Wyoming, very different politics around here, very different population. Everything was locked down from mid-March, like right before St. Patrick's Day. Things started opening up as far as like bars and restaurants about mid to late May, I think. And we've had various stages of like, restrictions on room capacities and that sort of thing. I think we're at like 50% capacity for restaurants. We're still doing social distancing. But we've been semi-open since May, and I know California's been a little bit more strict about that. So my lockdown was pretty short, relatively speaking, 2 months. But we did a lot of the songs in those 2 months, and you guys kept me busy. If I didn't have a Westahouse song to mix, if we were, we'd finished one and I was waiting a couple weeks for the next one, I was my worst self. There was so much beer, so many video games. But you guys kept me busy, and you at least made, an otherwise lethargic lockdown. You kept me busy and kept me active, so that was good. And I appreciate that.
Well, there's no plan to change that in 2021.
So now I got to fit it around.
We won't talk about it on this episode, but there's plenty of work for Bobby.
Oh, yeah.
we want to keep you focused,
Yep.
Bobby.
No, we got it. So, what were we talking about?
Your
background
BGVs, your
right,
whispering.
yeah. So I vaguely remember that now. I feel like most of my contribution was in just the kind of making the sonics happen. But I remember the whisper now, and I remember the waves crashing, just as kind of a subtle effect. So
you did some cool stuff also when we get to that whole the broken shell inherit the earth part. I mean, there's like I don't know how many tracks I did, maybe 3 there, but you did some really cool effects, and it sounds really cool in headphones.
With your basic spoken word track that goes through that entire thing, after I guess you can call them 2 verses. The whole spoken word thing, when you gave it to me, it was just you talking, kind of a low voice.
To say everything I need to say, it would take eternity. Just to scratch the surface, just to write an introduction, just to begin to paint the picture that is our masterpiece. Made perfect.
And I wanted to find a way for it to grab attention and hold interest the whole way. And doing that with a spoken word in the middle of a song is tricky. What I ended up doing was I put a stereo effect on it, so it sounds like it's coming in both your ears. It's kind of tickly. I think I gave it a chorusing effect too, so it's almost not quite robotic, but it's got that sort of synthesized sound. And then specifically on the Broken Shall Inherit the Earth, you gave me a sort of shout track on top of it.
The broken shall inherit the earth. The broken shall inherit the earth.
And this was right in the middle. It was like right around when the George Floyd Black Lives Matter protests were really in the forefront of the media. And so protests and people, yelling into megaphones, and just this general unrest was at the forefront of my mind. And when I heard that, I was like, this has to sound like it's going through a megaphone, like it's a call to action sort of thing. So I put some distortion on it. I think I actually slid it back in time a little bit. I think I delayed it from where you had initially placed it, just so it kind of echoed off the spoken word portion of it. But yeah,
you nailed that.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was going for with that sound.
It's definitely one of my favorite parts in the song. And I think the only other part, there's some sung vocals then, the last thing I added to this, under that spoken word. And those were actually the first lyrics that I wrote after West of House started. We needed, I think, an about section for our Facebook page. And so just off the top of my head, I came far to the west, chasing the sun. The end is the beginning as we leave our house for home. We could talk layers. There's a lot of layers there. And this just seemed like the perfect kind of song to layer that under and have it. You have to listen for it to hear it. But then when it's there, it lends a little immediacy and meaning to what's being said on top of it.
And Eric, did we talk about this a little bit in a previous episode, maybe our first one, about where West of House title of the band name came from, where we did kind of unfold that and unpackage that a little bit?
You did. You guys are freaking nerds, and I love it.
Yes, we are.
We own it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And I forgot about that in preparing for this episode, reading through the lyrics. The Far to the West. I mean, for me, Lord of the Rings is very near and dear to my heart.
Well, I can't say I was thinking about Lord of the Rings, when I came up with that, but it's a part of kind of everything we do with the band, that intentionality about moving westward, metaphorically. And, what we talked about in the first episode, what that being about the movement toward either death or eternity or just a higher plane of existence. And so every song on some level moves westward for me. I'll put that in air quotes. But it's definitely there. And I try to be very intentional with the subtext of the songs. And it's the same here. I mean, there's very both intentional and even subconscious things, I think, in my style of writing, what comes out naturally. Also, this fascination with the movement, with the journey, with how that's what life is all about, and not just being static, not being part of the status quo. And I think that kind of moves us on to the interpretation of the song. And then this was a different one because I've talked to a lot of people about the song, and everyone took it differently, which is great, which is exactly what I wanted. But why don't we chat about that? I don't know if you have something, Bobby, so I'll go to Lance first. So you can cram real fast, but what were your thoughts?
Yeah, take your time, Bobby.
No, I've got it. Man.
No, that's part of what I love about doing these podcasts is, Erick shares these lyrics. He writes them out early on in the process. And I've admitted in the past, I don't really look at lyrics until things are done and I can sit on my couch and drink my gin.
Monster.
I know. So when I get to reflect and all that stuff, and, Erick generally will hold all explanations if he ever shares them, but he'll often share them well after I've had my attempt to explain them. And I do love that because Erick is a master at writing lyrics that can really be multiple meanings for multiple people. And it is a beautiful piece of his art creation. So, we talked a little bit about the Lord of the Rings thing, and the other part you said is the end is the beginning. And gosh, that's like a humanistic line that, it's like we have chapters to our life walking this earth. And no matter where you reside in terms of faith, religion or not, but you leave childhood to manhood for us men, or you get married. So you leave the end of your single life into the beginning of a relationship that hopefully will last the eternity of your years on earth. We leave these passages of our home to college into hopefully a career. And so there's so many layers on just the lines you've already shared so far in this podcast. But for me, if you start unpackaging this song, and I think you and I, Erick, have talked a little bit about this song and what it meant to you. But I'm also bleeding that in with conversation I've had with my wife about it. And, I'll play the song, and my wife literally only hears lyrics anyways. I don't think she's ever actually heard a bass clef note, like tonality wise, in her life. And
that's why you're perfect for each other.
Yeah.
She'll take care of the lyrics and you take care of the music.
Yeah, it is a good match. We say that often to each other. We cover each other's basis and strengths and all that stuff. But, for me, it screams biblical stuff, and Jenny or somebody, was one of us, I thought it was a conversation, Erick, that you and I had about maybe a love story towards Shannon and your household. And So I remember my wife and I, Jenny, getting in this discussion about it, and there's some very blatant religious lines to me in here that we kind of talked about, and I'm trying to find them right now as I read through them. But you bore into existence 3 expressions of love. So if you want to put on like Protestant, Christian, maybe Catholic, but we're talking the Trinity, right? We've got the Son, the Father, the Holy Ghost, but you also have 3 daughters. So there was an interesting conversation of having 3 expressions of love and the existence of your 3 daughters. So that's kind of interesting, but I still can't pull myself away through a lot of this. And I look at it as the lens of God trying to talk to each of us. And there's these moments where he's this relational God, where some faiths struggle with that, where I think it is one cool way of Christianity and Protestant. You can approach God, as opposed to other religions. You can't really approach God, and ours is more of a friendship relationship, but yet we need to love and honor him. And so there's a lot of pieces to that for me, where even though I have so little to give in comparison to what you deserve, this is kind of my response back. I can't give much back to him. I mean, he created me. He created earth. He created all these great things like trees and the piney junipers we talked about with Jen. But even those little things versus big things, right? And what little I have could never be enough. I give it all to you. And again, I feel like that's something that I say when I'm having these times of like recognizing I'm so weak and frail, but yet I could see God saying that to the little man too, is it could never be enough for how much I love you. And I think that's something that inspires me just as a human. I work in education, and one of the things I try to do every day as I walk in that door is, how can I breathe life into others? How can I lift them up? It's not about me, it's about everyone else. And that's kind of one of my daily mottos and a prayer I kind of say every day when I wake up. And so that's to me the kind of contrast between what the song could be and what it means to me. And, I'd still love to hear what Erick, why he wrote it, but knowing him, he probably won't tell me. And then I have a couple, just know you too well, brother.
Precious.
That was a very good Schmeagol. That wasn't Gollum. Very good Schmeagol, the happy side of the duality of that character.
It's not always my intent for my songs to take you to church, Lance, but I'm happy that they do that for you. You've mentioned that on other episodes too, and I enjoy that. There's some life-affirming quality to that.
For sure. And it's always there on the end of my tongue and thoughts, I guess. But one word I have to, and I've never shared this with you, Erick, but you have a line here about painting the picture that is our masterpiece. And I'm going to be a dad real quick. And my 3 kids, they all went to a preschool here in town, St. Paul's, and they're awesome. They're very exploratory, and they're not about work and learning like arithmetic and language. They want kids to be kids. And I love them for that, because they let kids just kind of explore stuff. Because learning is something that I wish all kids, no matter, and even adults, it's a lifelong journey of learning. I hate when schools, and I feel bad sometimes in my work, where school becomes more of a duty as opposed to something that we love. But there was a song, and it's the main song at this preschool, and it's called The Masterpiece, and it's biblical, but it's so cute to see these kids sing this song of how they're a masterpiece. And as a parent, of course, you feel like every child you create and hopefully can guide into greatness, they are a masterpiece. And it's, the fact that they're all so different, even though they have the same parents or same house, it is a beautiful thing to watch them grow and develop. So that word to me is kind of precious in a sense, because masterpiece reminds me of being a father for my little precious creations that I've been blessed to have. But I will say, Erick, I can't imagine, you said, I'm glad I bring you to church or whatever through lyrics, but there's no way of denying the closing line. So I'd love for you to retort me on this. about
Is that even English? Retort you?
retort your line about the kind of the ending where we talk about the broken shall inherit the earth, which, we just talked about how Bobby made that kind of this bigger thing and really kind of brought that out to the forefront. But the broken shall inherit the earth. I mean, that's literally and I know you've mentioned this, that scriptures is a great and an often fantastic source for inspiration in words. But Matthew 5:5, it's the meek shall inherit the earth, and I take the meek as the broken. So I would love to hear your cacophony of explanation of how you try to defend the fact that is not from Matthew chapter 5, verse 5.
That's a great question. Let's hear what Bobby has to say.
Classic.
Way to deflect. No, I'll bring it around. So it's interesting hearing Lance's interpretation of it, because it's kind of cracked my little head open on it. Because I took it a completely different direction, and
Yes, I love it. Conflicting
So,
views.
Again, you made his loins tingle.
Well, I think that's, and I know we said we weren't going to be completely self-serving, but I think the hallmark of a well-written song is that multiple people can relate to it in different ways. So that's just credit to Erick's, that's just credit to Erick's songwriting right there. So I took it kind of a much more personal way insofar as relationship with my wife. My wife and I, we've been together for 7 years. We've been married for 3. And this felt like sort of a song about falling in love slow and fast at the same time. And just all that comes with that. Like, it feels to me, the first 2 verses anyway, about how maybe it's not perfect. Maybe it's not, this storybook thing, but we're going to make it work. We'll never get it right, that perfect turn of phrase. Not everything we say comes out as this great Disney-esque poetry when we're confessing love to another human being. And then the whole spoken word part just reminded me of those first perfect dates with my wife. We did fall in love really fast. And we had both gotten out of really messy, really toxic relationships. And we were both just in the right frame of mind. If we had met each other 6 years prior, 5 years prior, it would not have worked out. We were different people. But the whole spoken word thing just reminded me of meeting my wife and falling in love with her super fast. It just clicked. And how I wanted to give her everything, even though we'd only been together for, at the time, maybe 6 months or a year. So that was kind of where my brain went with it. And, unconditional love, there's just so much to say about that. But yeah, that's kind of where I took it. Was a much more intimate, personal thing. I would have never automatically taken it to a scripture level. That's really fascinating, though. I love hearing that.
All right. Thank you for joining us for Echoes Down the Road. Wait, I'm supposed to talk now.
Yeah. So I did have a question. What's up with the broken shall inherit the earth?
You know what? That's a wonderful question. And I will not blow it off. So Lance is half correct. Obviously, that in phrase, just to quote, shall inherit the earth, is from Sermon on the Mount. That, regardless of religious background, we know that's a phrase that Jesus said. He said, the meek shall inherit the earth. So the shall inherit the earth is lifted from the Bible, as I am apt to do with lyrics, because there's a lot of beauty there. The broken does not equate, in my mind, with the meek. You could. I'm not going to say you're wrong, because, far be it from me to get on that pedestal. But for me, it's this idea, kind of a fascination I have with humanity and how we are all broken individuals, through our stories, through what we experience. Anyone you meet, obviously, who has it all together is just doing a great job of hiding it. And it's just my belief that it's kind of the beauty of humanity is our brokenness. And I think it's through our brokenness that we can give the most to the world. And so kind of to back up, and I'll jump back into it. When my wife, when Shannon heard this, she thought it was a prayer. She thought I'd written a prayer. And then she's texting me. I think I was at work. She's texting me, giving me like a song by song as she's going through the album the first time. And I told her, I said, listen to it again and put yourself into it, because this was written to my wife. And she did. And then I get the text back, I'm weeping and I'm happy because then I know I wrote a good song. If I can make my wife cry, that's good. She wept with Carry Your Dreams, which was blatantly about my kids. But I think that's where that, when all those lyrics came pouring out, it had been a while since I had written a song just for her. I think I wrote these lyrics before Chasing After Memories. And so all this stuff started coming out about our relationship. And really, and Bobby kind of mentioned it, it was the verses that kind of set that off. We watch the movies and we watch these romantic relationships, which are always perfect. And everyone says the same thing. And it's very poetic. And life is not like that. Life is not always about poetry. And if we sit around waiting for the right thing to say, for this perfect line to make it like a cinematic experience, we'll miss the whole point of relationships. And, my wife and I, we celebrated 20 years of marriage last year. We've been together for, I think, an extra 3 years on top of that. So 23 years together. So a lot comes out with those lyrics. And that's why it's just kind of scratching the surface. And, Lance brings up the idea of a masterpiece. And I think that any relationship, well, no, not any relationship, but many relationships are masterpieces in their own ways. Because we learn to love through imperfections, and we learn to love imperfect people, and they learn to love us, which is very hard. If you get into a relationship expecting perfection, that relationship is over. Because we're not perfect. And it kind of goes back to the whole broken idea. I'm a very broken person, and my wife loves me for my brokenness. And, that being the port in the storm, the light in the darkness, these are the things that we hold to in our relationships. Lance, you nailed 3 expressions of love. That's about the girls.
Woohoo!
Hey, Trinity stuff always works too, but that's definitely about the girls. And that whole line, that line after, without whom we are incomplete, and through each one we will live forever. Because our kids are our legacy. I mean, that's how we end up living forever after we're gone. Our kids carry that on, and kids carry that on. Music's the same way. Music does that too. That's why I write so many damn songs. Because, my days are numbered, but, Spotify, because I paid an extra $30, those songs will last forever. And then, we get into the end, and even though I have so little to give in comparison to what you deserve, and what little I have could never be enough, I give it all. Those are basically, I should have said that for my wedding vows.
That's awesome.
Because I never feel like I have enough to give my wife what she deserves. And thankfully she doesn't say that to me like, I need more. She's not that type of person.
No, but we're men,
God.
So we're pretty much, I think that's a wonderful expression that we all should say to our wives.
Absolutely.
Well, it's part of, being with any human. If you approach a relationship with the right mindset, you're never going to feel like you've reached a point where you've given enough. And if you have, well, then maybe it's time for counseling. Because maybe then if you've been like, I'm good,
Absolutely.
now we're good. Well, now you've reached the peak, and now it's all downhill from there. So, and like a lot of these songs, a lot of these come from my own insecurities just in relationships, and that constant need, to try to do better and to try to be better, and especially be an example for my kids as well. So a lot of ranting to say you're both right, and I'm sure someone else will listen to it and find something else. And that's kind of what I love about this song, because these are general themes. These aren't themes exclusive to a husband and wife relationship. These are themes for anyone.
As true as that is, I still have to ask you so there's one line that I love, and it like kind of clinks off my head, which, okay. I don't have the depth of everyone, but so I love the line, a symphony so complex I can barely understand. I don't know, maybe Bach and Wegner and certain
Wegner?
Verdi.
What's a Wegner?
Well, Wegner.
Is that like Schmegner?
No. I'm talking about
you mean Wagner?
Wagner and then Verdi. So like symphonies are very complex. I hope we could all agree with. But
yeah, it foreshadows to another song on the album there.
Right, which is, coming up soon on the album. But however, the following line is where it kind of clinks off my head. So why you stayed, I love that. But what the heck does after the orchestra tune to A above middle C, why you stayed with me? I mean, I ask that of myself almost daily, but what's the whole tune to A above middle C? There's got to be something there.
Can I take a stab at that? And I want to see how close I am.
Yeah, I see you raising your hand, and I think you're going to get it right.
So my
go
stab
for it,
at it is that when you're saying the symphony, I'm assuming you're using it as a metaphor for yourself, for your mind, for your heart. So complex that if we're assuming it's your wife you're talking to here, like you said, kind of like why you stayed with me after the first date, why you stayed with me after I was even just like getting ready for this whole cacophony of life. That's kind of where I took it. I can't, it's so complex, but you stuck with it even after, round one, basically, is kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah. You nailed it. I mean, if you've ever been, to an orchestra or anything with an orchestra, a Broadway show or whatever, before it starts, they all tune. And they tune to A above middle C. That's how the orchestra gets in tune. And yeah, Bobby kind of nailed it. That's the time to duck out. If you're about to sit through, a symphony, which is not short, if you come to that conclusion that you don't want to go, you go right after they tune. Because after they tune, you're in for the long haul. And so, yeah, that's that whole idea.
Nice. Well played, Bobby.
Like recognizes like, man.
Bobby's good. We're going to have to keep him around. I want to go back to all the other episodes and say, Bobby, what'd you think about this song? I'm going to start quizzing him on the lyrics. I'll probably get new stuff out of it too. So there we have it.
I think that brings us to the actual art.
I think we should play the song. So what we're going to play now, this is Turn of Phrase. This is track 7 off of Crescendo of Silence, mixed and mastered by Bobby Phillipps. And give it a listen.
Just speak your mind. We're running out of time. Running out of time. To try to find a way to say goodbye. Say never get it right. The perfect turn of phrase. If we wait for poetry, we'll be too late. We'll be too
To say everything I need to say, it would take eternity. Just to scratch the surface, just to write an introduction, just to begin to paint the picture that is our masterpiece, made perfect by our imperfections, and faultless within our faults. A symphony so complex that I can barely understand why you stayed after the orchestra tuned to A above middle C. Why you stayed with me. You are my port in the storm. You are the light in my darkness. You bore into existence 3 expressions of love without whom we are incomplete. And through each one we will live forever. A legacy that shouts loudly from the rooftop. The broken shall inherit the earth. The broken shall inherit the earth. The broken shall inherit the earth. And she will be made whole. And she will be made And even though I have so little to give in comparison to what we deserve, and what little I have could never be enough, I give all.
You know what? And you know what I'm going to say? I still love it.
It's a good one, man.
Don't we?
Every song we play, I still, this one, it kind of gives me fun goosebumps. It's a nice, it's not the easiest song to listen to on the album. And, there's kind of an interesting story there, Lance. When we were talking about, programming the album and seeing what order the songs would go in, you had Turn of Phrase in a different spot.
I did. You and I I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I think you and I both had a good time talking about this. It wasn't as easy for other members in the band, sans Kevin, because everything is easy for Kevin, but
Tommy's not here to defend himself.
I know. So we have 2 slow songs in my mind on this album. There are some obviously kind of change-ups also in there that are mellower versus a hard rocker like Denmark or Shadows and Echoes, but ultimately they had to be one had to be on one side, one had to be the other. And I actually had this on the first half of the album, the A side, of course in slot 4, because that's where slow songs are supposed to be. So,
True story.
And then I had the other one, Chasing Memories. I think I had that at 8 or 9, but I think I had it at 9 before we closed, because we knew VS was going to be that's voyeuristic symphony Wessies. I knew that would be our closer because Erick's passion for that to be there, and it made sense as a closer. So Erick and I kind of, I don't know, I want to say thumb wrestled or arm wrestled over this, but I do remember you saying you can't have a spoken piece on the A side of an album.
I did.
And
I did say
he
that.
said that, and I giggle out loud to this day about that. And the reason why I laugh so hard is our very first song of the album has a spoken piece. Now, it's not
the same. That is a quote. That is a clip.
No, it's not Erick speaking, as he said, but it is a spoken piece.
That's the difference between.
I push back on that argument.
I'm with Erick on this one. That's the difference between a spoken word and a sample.
Right. So be it as you will, sound ninja and leader of all good things, but it's still a spoken piece. Now, again, it's easier to separate yourself because it's not you, but I giggled and I said, whatever, my friend, I don't really care, but one of these has got to go in the front or the back half of the album in the 4 spot. And I personally felt this one flowed better coming out of Denmark. Denmark is a in-your-face rocker, arguably the hardest rocking one on the song, in my opinion. But the point is, the way it ends, and you've got that kind of panning left and right end of it with your phantom solo, I just felt the sound sonically was exactly a perfect prelude to Turn of Phrase. And so Erick and I went back and forth and punched each other a few times, and we just kind of said, okay, it's a truce. And I don't really care where things go, but I spent so much time, and I'm like, sonically it's perfect as the 4 spot right out of Denmark. But, it's fine. It's great where it is. And I think now looking back, it is more appropriate because it is a sip on your Baileys, sip on your whatever Irish cream on the couch kind of a song, which, fits for a B-side slow song.
Well, you've just come out of Ghosted too.
Yeah.
And Ghosted, that's a slap
Ghosted
in the face.
was a beast.
I mean, not just musically, but also lyrically. So Turn of Phrase is your, that's your respite in the maelstrom.
You can call it a palate cleanser there.
For sure.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. Bobby Phillipps, thank you so much
man. It's been
for joining us for this
Bobby
one.
Phillipps,
This was
ladies
an
and gentlemen.
absolute treat.
Been a blast,
Yes.
man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Crushed it.
We definitely have
I'd
to
love
bring
to.
you back for other stuff. This just worked really well. And thank you to all you out there who are listening, still listening. We're very thankful, that you give us your attention and you join us for this time to kind of go through what we talked about before, this audio diary of what we've created. We want to have this out there just not only for us to look back on, but also for anyone who finds our music interesting. And it's an honor and a privilege if you consider us interesting. We thank you and keep finding us interesting because we have a lot more to do. Next episode, we will be talking about Fallen, like Bobby talked about, the first West of House song, and also the last one we worked on, which we will get into that. There are some fun stories that come with Fallen. It is the bookend of Crescendo of Silence.
Yeah, I think we've referenced it more than any other song in any of these podcasts, and it is where Bobby Phillipps came into our lives.
Yeah, so I don't want to make any promises to the listeners, but if we can work out where all of us can be on that, because we had some additions made at the end. I think if we can get all of us in the same chat room, that'd be fun. But no promises for the listeners.
We will make it happen.
All right, promises for the listeners.
We will try to make it happen.
Yeah.
We never know. I mean, Kevin's off gallivanting.
He's in the void.
With the void of Washington. They have like glittery vampires up there, as I understand it, and it's a strange world he lives in. But we will definitely try. There's a lot. We'll probably end up going 2 hours, and we apologize for the length. Just to throw this out there to everyone, the original intent was for these episodes to last 30 minutes. And after the first one, we realized that's just not going to happen.
Nope.
Now, season 2, maybe we'll hit that 45, 50-minute mark. But we don't want to cut too much of it because, well, it's interesting.
It's absolutely interesting. And I want to add one little fun fact. Bobby, you don't know this, but I'm glad I got to meet you today officially through screen. But for the first many days, I called you upon Ricky Bobby, because Bobby's a fun word to say.
I have been called so much worse since this morning. Don't worry about it.
There's nothing wrong with Ricky Bobby. He's an icon.
So I gotta say,
Lance always has a
never
name
actually
for
seen
someone.
the movie.
Well, speaking of medulla oblongata, hey, if you get a chance, give us a listen. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, iHeartRadio, anywhere you listen to streaming music. You can find us on Bandcamp at westofhouse.bandcamp.com if you want to download some fine tunes. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Westofhouse Band. That's the name there. And on YouTube, search us up and subscribe. Our subscribers have actually gone up just a tick since we started the podcast, but we're still not at 100, and I hate the long URL. Please, for the love of God, people, that's all I want before I die. I just want a youtube.com/westofhouseband. It's a small ask. But it has been a lot of fun today, and thanks. Thanks again.
Thanks,
Bobby.
me.
Appreciate it. And have a good day, and we'll see you next time.
Eric, did you give Bobby the lyrics as well?
Mm-hmm. I got those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got everything. We're good to go. And he knows you do an interpretive dance about 6 minutes in.
Is that in here?
Well, there's a 2-minute disrobing part. So,
okay.
It's the lead up.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be lots we edit out of this. There's a lot of nonsense.
I'm sure.
Definitely.
Okay. Let's get my sexy voice on here.